here today. So good morning, everyone, and happy International Women's Day. So thank you all for joining us and welcome. So my name is Nazanin. I'm the Assistant Branch Manager at RBC Meeting Place. So we actually work very closely with ACCES Employment, and we really value this partnership as we share the same vision, value, and passion for the newcomer community. So we're excited to be here today as we have a very, very special guest today. We have Erin Martin, a head of partnership at Prep, which is part of RBC Venture. So lucky to have her today. She has a lot to offer today, and we're gonna hear from her very shortly. So I was newcomer myself, and I went through so many challenges like finding employment. And I wish that I could attend workshop like this, like back in 10, 12 years ago. But I just learned the hard way. So that's why we are here today, to provide you with some great tips and advice on how to build impactful resume. And with that, let me just talk about the agenda with you. That's what we have for you today. So first, I'm gonna talk, we already heard from ACCES, and next I'm gonna go over RBC's purpose and vision, and from there I'm gonna talk about RBC values to get to know RBC as an organization, and then we are gonna introduce RBC Meeting Place, where we work, and next we are going to get into the main presentation. We have a very packed agenda today, as Erin will be presenting about like 4 steps to building an effective resume, understanding the assignment, and how to improve your master resume and how to tailor your resume to the role. And as I said, she has a lot to offer today, so be ready to take lots of notes. And of course, at the end, we're going to get into your question. So feel free to enter your question in the chat box, or if you have any comment or feedback, so please let us know. All right, so with that, so now we'd like to talk about RBC. As a proud RBCer, I'm gonna talk about RBC purpose and value. So as you can see on the screen, so RBC purpose is helping clients thrive and communities prosper. And our vision is to be among the world's most trusted and financial institution. And here, I want to talk about RBC values. So RBC has around 80,000 employees, so we're all guided by one set of values. So first is client first. We always earn the right to be our client first choice. So the other one is collaboration. We always win as one RBC. We are partners and we work together as one RBC to make sure our clients and communities prosper. So, and the other one is accountability. So we take our ownership for personal and collective high performance. And integrity. We hold ourselves to the highest standards to build trust. And also diversity and inclusion, which is very, very important for us, because we embrace diversity for innovation and growth. So we speak up for our inclusion, and we empower people to grow and achieve more. So actually our commitment to diversity and inclusion makes us such a strong organization. As you all know, it's International Women's Day today, and I would like to share with you that RBC has provided 256 plus millions through RBC Future Line since 2017, reaching over 3.6 million Canadian youth, 56% of whom identified as a women. And additionally, in fiscal year 21, RBC donated over 3 million specifically to causes primarily benefiting women. So International Women's Day is a time for everyone to recognize that the progress made and call for change and celebrate women around the world. So now let's watch a video all together about the International Women's Day. All right, here we go. Awesome, great. I really love that video. So we're strong as a woman, we are limitless and we empower and we are the future. Awesome. Thank you much, everyone. So now I would like to hand it to Ria, our banking advisor, to introduce herself and also introduce RBC Meeting Place. Thank you, Ria. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Naz. Happy International Women's Day, everyone. I'm definitely an ally and I'm definitely limitless. So thank you, Naz, for sharing that video with me when we were preparing. It's such a great video. It really depicts the strong emphasis RBC places on our core value of diversity and inclusion. It ties in so well with International Women's Day 2020 campaign theme, which is, hashtag break the biases. So we want, a gender equal world and a world free of bias, stereotypes, and discrimination. So I really, really applaud that video that RBC made. I really, really like it. It's actually giving me goosebumps. So I think collectively we can all break the biases as women. So again, it's such an empowering video. So thanks again, Naz. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Ria, as you can see. Welcome to RBC and ACCESS Employment Resume Workshop with our very own partners at Prepped. Thank you for being here and investing time into your success today. I have to say, such a privilege to work for RBC, a place that places such a vast emphasis on being present in the community, so much so that they've created branches all around Canada dedicated to newcomers and youths to provide the support and resources for their settlement and career journey in Canada. So I'm happy to tell you more about our branch, and I'll move on to our team. So it does carry forward with our unique and diverse team. Jeff and Nazanin are our branch leaders. Farah and Felipe and I were all banking advisors, so we're all experienced advisors that are more than happy to share our knowledge in the form of banking or more than just banking as well. And now beyond our immediate team of 5, we have an extensive support team that we can call upon for their knowledge and expertise to assist us in delivering events, depending on the topic. Just like today, we called upon the expert, Erin, to share more about this wonderful tool at Prep that can assist you to plan, prepare, and perfect your job search. I'm excited to hear more about this tool and utilizing it myself. So thank you, Erin, for being here and sharing more about Prepped and the resources that comes along with it, and also sharing your insight on how to build an impactful resume. So we're a team of different skills and expertise, but we're brought together as one RBC. And along with our support team, we have the support from our community partners. We work with many organizations in the community to carry out our mission at RBC Meeting Place. We work with ACCESS Employment today. They too share the same vision and values as we do into helping newcomers. So we create awareness and work together to empower newcomers by providing the advice that goes well beyond banking in the Canadian banking system. So it's great to be able to create such memorable experiences for the newcomers and clients alike, and to be on their path and to help inspire them on their journey as new Canadians. And we're so proud of the winning partnership we have with our community that we've created and nurtured with our events. Our goal is to essentially be proactive and prepared and on our clients' path as trusted strategic advisors for their banking needs. We provide the advice and guidance with regards to the banking industry in Canada. As we know, it varies from country to country, by providing that advice that goes beyond banking. Just like today with building an impactful resume. So we host events such as these to provide advice to the newcomer community. It sometimes includes financial literacy, such as buying your first home in Canada, how credit looks like in Canada, the different investments that we have. And then we take that additional step and we host beyond banking pieces as well with our role discovery events, meet our recruitment team, rock your LinkedIn profile, and many, many more. Just like today, and well-deserved thank you to technology the world we live in today, we're able to connect with our clients in the virtual setting and to be here with you in the virtual setting as well to provide the guidance and the resources that you need to be successful in Canada. So now that you know a bit more about RBC and RBC Meeting Place, I would like to hand it over to Erin to get us started.
Thank you very much, Ria. It's a pleasure to be here, especially on International Women's Day. And also thank you to ACCESS Employment and RBC for supporting this event today. So as I was introduced, I'm the head of partnerships at Prept. Prept is a subsidiary of RBC Ventures. And prior to joining Prept, I spent about 20 years in the world of talent acquisition and performance and talent management. So hopefully I can provide you guys with some tips and insights from real world experiences that I've had. And please do comment, ask questions in the chat. It would be lovely to make this session as interactive as possible. Another piece about me is I'm president-elect of CACCES, which is the Canadian Association of Career Educators and Employers, and it's the not-for-profit body in Canada that facilitates the school-to-work transition for post-secondary education students. So next slide, if you don't mind. Thanks, Naz. So since 2019, Prept has supported over 100,000 job seekers. About half of those have come from post-secondary institutions based in Canada, and many international students have used our platform as well to help them plan, prepare, and practice their job searching skills to really navigate their job search more effectively and build the confidence they need to be successful with their job search. I think one of the big metrics that Prep likes to measure is confidence. We have a statistic that indicates about 2/3 or 66% of all prepped users are more confident after using prepped than before, so rating themselves as a 5. And many people, come in sort of in that 2 or 3 range. And then when they finish using prepped, they're super confident and go out into the world and apply the skills and techniques that they used. So I would love to just get a pulse check from the folks on the call today. If you could put into the chat, how do you feel about your resume today? How confident are you? 1 being not confident at all, and 5 being super confident. So if you could take a minute to just enter anywhere between 1 to 5 in the chat, that would be wonderful. So we'll give you a minute to do that. Great. 3, 2, 3, 3. Perfect. So while you guys are entering that information, if we can go to the next slide, what we're going to cover today are sort of the 4 steps to building an effective resume, really understanding the assignment, why you need a resume, what is it? Looking at your master resume, do I have all the information I need in one place? Improving that as well. 3's wonderful. And tailoring your resume to the roles. You may have one master document and then want to pull information from that to create a CV that's more particular to a job. And then finally, provide you with some tools and resources to really give you that confidence to go forward with your job search, help save you time as well. So next slide. Wonderful. So this is essentially the steps that we're going to follow today. Understanding the assignment really answers the why, the who, and the what a resume is. And then we're going to make sure you have all the information in one place. If you don't have a lot of work experience, don't worry. There's tons of resources that you can pull from in terms of volunteer, extracurriculars, and really pinpointing what your skills are in terms of interpersonal, technical, and non-technical as well, so more soft skills. Number 3, how to make your resume more impactful. Edit, edit, edit. So we'll teach you some tips and tricks in terms of, how to make your CV very clear, concise, and how to quantify it so it really packs that punch. And then finally, how to tailor your CV to each role, in terms of reviewing job descriptions. One thing, before Prepped and before I knew Prepped existed as a tool, I would always, when I would do webinars and sessions, tell students, take the CV or take the job description, take your CV and go through and highlight the key skills and abilities, and then go back to your CV and make sure that your CV reflects what those skills and abilities are. So we'll cover that as well. And the next slide. Thank you. Okay, so first we're going to focus on the assignment and really ask ourselves why we're doing this in the first place. What's the purpose? Who's your audience? Because you may have a resume that you tailor to optimize an ATS, get past the ATS. And then once that shortlist has been created, you're then going to have your CV read by a human, a recruiter, who probably has about 10 to 15 seconds to actually spend time reviewing your CV and just making sure you have the initial qualifications and skills that they're looking for. And then what is our goal? I mean, ultimately our goal here is to get a job, but it's to build an impactful resume that's going to help get you through each step in the initial interview and CV screening process. So really understanding what your resume is, who will review it, and what your end goal is super important. A resume is essentially a marketing document. It's funny, someone in the chat just asked, is it a good idea if I include a cover letter for my job application? And I get asked that a lot. And to be honest, because so many CVs are coming through an ATS, I would say the cover letter is way more impactful when you get past that first ATS stage. You've made the shortlist, you're now meeting with a recruiter, and you can really detail and make that cover letter as impactful as possible. You know who hopefully the recruiter's name is that you're meeting with. And you can then use that cover letter to really highlight your skills and abilities, but it also may be a different cover letter that you want to create for the hiring manager stage as well. So I know the session today is really focusing more so on building an impactful resume, but certainly a cover letter becomes more important as you're in, past the ATS stage and more in the latter stages of the interview process at that point. But great question. Thank you. So aside from the resume being a marketing document, you also, as I mentioned, want to tailor not just your cover letter, but also your CV to the person that's going to be reading it. So the recruiter is essentially the first desk, is a loose term. Most of it is virtual now. But the recruiter's job is to essentially go through and create a short list of candidates that they're then going to pass on to the hiring manager. And I speak from experience when I say recruiters are really desperately trying to find a way to screen you in. So let's make it easy for them by ensuring that you're optimizing your CV for that particular job. And we'll show you how to do that in this session. But keep in mind, recruiters have very limited time to spend reviewing CVs. So if they don't initially see the skills and qualifications that they're looking for, whether it be education, whether it be, specific technical skills or proficiency with a certain program, if they can't scan your CV and see those words pop out for them, they're just going to go to the next. And I know it's a harsh reality, but this is a way that you can really tailor your CV to make sure that you're able to put your best foot forward. For a hiring manager, they are going to take the recommendation of the shortlist from the recruiter, and they're going to have a second look, right? And so typically this person may be your manager if you were to get hired there. And so they not only want to see that you are qualified for the job, but they also want to see that you're going to be able to excel and work in a team setting. So they're not just focused on skills and abilities anymore. They're looking at, fit for role at this point. So they're essentially deciding who to interview based on the shortlist provided by the recruiter, and then looking for signs that you will excel in the role. And then what is our goal? Obviously with the recruiter, it's to catch their attention. I think 20 seconds is very generous. Recruiters literally will spend probably 10 to 15 seconds on a CV and scanning it for skills and abilities. And they're really looking for the must-haves. So if there's an educational requirement and that's in the job description, you really want to make sure you're highlighting that on your CV. and you're demonstrating that you have the right skills for this particular role. And then for the hiring manager, it's important that you're making a lasting impression. So there's certainly a value proposition statement at the very top that you can highlight that will allow you to stand out. Okay, the next pillar is really looking at examining your master resume and ensuring that you have all of the information you need. So maybe it's an engineering role that you're looking for, but there could be different roles within that engineering role that you're applying to. If it's analyst or supervisor or quality assurance or whatever that is, you definitely want to make sure that you have one document that has all the information, and then you can parse that depending on the role that you're applying to specifically. So all of your qualifications, credentials, any systems that you're proficient with, all of your work experience. If you don't have a lot of work experience, it's completely fine. Listing out any volunteer experience, making sure that if you've led a team or led a project in a classroom, that you're highlighting those skills as well, and your technical as well as your non-technical skills. So, things like team building, your ability to communicate effectively, all of those things are really important as you move into the workplace as well. And this is key, actually. So you may consider, keeping these resume sections in a Word doc or a notes section, because you can then just literally cut and paste from that document over to your CV. Contact info is pretty basic, so no pictures or anything like that, but just basic, telephone, email, address, and if you have a stellar LinkedIn profile as well, you want to include that link too. I can tell you from experience, a recruiter is probably not going to take a look at your LinkedIn or any social networks until you're much further on the process. And I know this is a different session, probably a whole different session, but social media plays a very key role nowadays in terms of reference checking as well. So I won't spend too much time on this, but just please make sure that your social is cleaned up. So if a recruiter or someone checking your references does happen to go, oh, LinkedIn's great, let's go check Facebook. You want to make sure that it's professional as possible, because it does happen. The education segment is, your school, your degree, your graduation year is important, especially if you're applying for a co-op. I know there have been some co-op cohorts where we're typically looking for third and fourth year students. So that's when the graduation year is really relevant. If you made the dean's list, you definitely want to highlight that, as well as if you've won any scholarships or awards. That's something to include. And then, of course, your non-technical and your technical skills, as I mentioned earlier, teamwork, your situational awareness, your communication skills, and, for technical, any programs that you're proficient with, but also any structured problem solving. If you're proficient in agile, especially for an engineering role, that's important. Your ability to analyze data, make recommendations, and so on. So you want to include that too. Extracurriculars, if you're head of Toastmasters, please put this in here. I think it's really important for these next 3 buckets to really focus on your results and your skills. And this will really help you when you go to quantify your bullets in your CV, making sure that you're pulling that data and that you're using action words as well, in active voice. And we'll talk about that in a second. Your project experience, especially if you have a portfolio, if you're a designer, graphic designer, for example, and you want that recruiter or the hiring manager to really be able to dig into your project experience and give some examples of your work, this is where you can include a link to a web page, for example, if you want them to view that. And then your working experience, of course, is important. So don't worry too much about formatting at this stage. It's really just getting the information down on paper that's most important at this point. We do have a couple FAQs, frequently asked questions, that come from early stage professionals and folks who are looking for jobs. One we've touched on earlier is I don't have a lot of work experience. I mean, it's a catch-22, right? When you're talking to students and they go, well, the job tells me I need to have 2 to 3 years of experience, but how am I supposed to get that if no one will give me a job? It's like, I get it. So don't worry too much about that. Remember, if you have your extracurricular, you have volunteer, you have your classroom experience, those are definitely areas that you can focus on to say, look, I do have 2 to 3 years of experience. It may not necessarily be with an employer. Maybe it's a co-op. I mean, certainly you want to include those as well. If it's experience from another country that you feel is relevant, include that too. But try to find a way to make it work as opposed to saying, I don't have any experience. It's like, let's just try to find experiences that you do have and focus on the positive. Or I'm not sure how to articulate the skills I've built through which experiences, and that's really fair. So, a skill is defined as the ability to do something that comes from training, experience, or practice, and it doesn't always fall in, the parameters of a job or traditional job. So think about your experiences and consider what you did in those environments that really drove a desirable outcome, which may be things like volunteer, extracurricular, student project work, volunteer, anything like that. The next bucket is how to make your master resume impactful. So in the last step, we have everything down on paper. Now, how do we make it pretty clear, concise? So if we go to the next slide, there are really 5 tips to help you make your master resume impactful. Using an active voice, focusing on your results, quantifying that impact, and this is where the numbers from the previous step would be really helpful, being concise and trying to reduce repetition. And all of these are tips that would be included within Prepped and are automated. So sure, you can do it manually, or if you really wanted, to make it easier on yourself, you could use a program like Prep to help you with that. So we go to the next. Thanks. Coaching tip. So a lot of people are like, oh, I don't really know if I'm looking at my CV. How do I know if it's an active or passive voice? So active voice is it's basically using action words. So if you look at the examples on the right-hand side, you'll see the passive voice is starting with retail sales were increased by 15%. If you just switch that around a little bit to start with an action word, increased retail sales by 15%, that's way more impactful, but essentially saying the same thing. So consistently using an active voice will help you be more clear and impactful in your messaging. Not to mention, it's also really going to engage your reader. So if you look again at the active voice, we see words like increased, improved, implemented, right? And if I'm reading your CV as a recruiter, I'm going to go, oh, this person was really impactful in their job, versus if you look at the left under passive voice, just listing out essentially accomplishments, but not in a very impactful way, if that makes sense. So the next one is focusing on your results. And really, it's about describing the impact that you had on the team or the organization. So it's not a list of tasks, it's really honing in on those tasks that had the most impact and what that impact was. So if you look at the example, you have, as a first-year economics TA, I was responsible for marking student assignments and tests. Okay, but as a recruiter, I'm going, so what, right? If you go to the next suggestion, it says created an assignment rubric for Econ 101 to ensure marking consistency and used it to grade more than 400 student assignments. So you can immediately see just the quantification of the results is going to make this bullet much more impactful. And then how do you quantify your impact? What does that mean? So it's essentially conveying your achievements and thinking about how many, how much, how long, or how often. And so if you go back to the previous example for the TA who was grading assignments, right? So it was way more impactful when we were able to quantify the number of assignments that they marked. And it's the same here. So, if you're looking at the common bullet, teacher assistant to a science class. And as a recruiter, I'm going, so what? What does that mean? What did you do? And if you look at the suggested improvement, let a group of 50 science students, and so you can immediately see that just by adding in some quantification in terms of results, you're automatically increasing the impact of your bullets, and that's going to help you stand out. Next slide. And being concise is really important, and I am super guilty of this. Even when I uploaded my own CV onto Prepped, it was a big suggestion for me, and certainly an eye-opener after grading everyone else's CV for the past 20 years. I'm not perfect either, so a good coaching tip is to really ensure that you're only including relevant and succinct statements for that particular job. So, all of the experiences that are going to be meaningful to this particular role, using an active voice, which is going to help you provide clarity in your bullets. And, it doesn't need to be a complete sentence either. So you can definitely make it much more succinct. Just even visually, right? If you're looking at a CV and, hopefully it's maybe a page and a half, 2 pages max, it's a lot easier to scan. You definitely will have more impact if it's, you're highlighting your skills and abilities, but it's also not a paragraph. So under these examples here, the least favorable example is one that looks like a giant paragraph. It's much more impactful if you can just have one quick sentence that has a quantifiable bullet in it. So supervised 7 to 12 undergraduate research students per year, all continued to be top graduate schools. If you did want to highlight in the first example, they specialize in astrophysics, physics, or mathematics, and you feel that that's really relevant, sure, you can add it in here, but you definitely can see the difference between example A and example B in terms of the impactfulness. Hopefully you guys feel the same way. And then reducing repetition, again, guilty as charged. So, there are examples, I think just even in the last one we were looking at, where we use the word lead twice. And not to say that the word lead is not a very impactful word, but there are synonyms that you can certainly use. So if you are looking at your bullets and you're like, oh, lead, 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 lead. Okay, what's another synonym action word for lead? And then replace that. So, maybe it's amplified. And it just creates a little bit of variety. It makes your resume more interesting to read. And then some formatting tips. So we do have some wonderful templates within the Prep platform that are all optimized to ATS, which is wonderful. But you may just want to consider some of these designs. Keep it clean, make sure there's sufficient white space, prioritize the content based on what you want to highlight. Be consistent in your formatting. Things like font is really important. Spelling is also really important. I can't tell you how many CVs I've reviewed or cover letters I've reviewed with spelling and grammatical errors. The great news is there's lots of different programs that can help you with that. So please make sure you're just using them. And spell check and all that stuff is going to be really helpful. You don't need to include a picture, certainly not your age or a list of references at this point. If you are selected for an interview, your references they'll ask for them. I know some people include references available upon request. You don't need to include that either. I mean, it's kind of a given. If they ask you, you're probably going to provide them, right? And then length considerations. So try to keep it to 1 page and really focusing on the last 5 years of your work experience. If you've been working for 20 years, and you want to include every single job you've ever had, it's probably going to be too long and not super impactful. So I would recommend focusing on the last 5 years of your experience. And you're writing for someone who will need to scan your CV very quickly. So you want to make it as concise as possible and try not to have blocks of text, but literally, one word or one sentence bullet would be sufficient here. And the last bucket is tailoring your master resume to each role. So this is where, within Prepped, you do have the ability to cut and paste a job description, and the system will automatically offer you suggestions to optimize your CV for that particular role. It is the most popular feature of Prepped, to be honest. People love it. And unlimited rescans, you see people scanning their resume like 60 times. And we're thinking that's a lot. But hey, if you're applying to 100 jobs and it's a numbers game, then you do what you have to do. But really, this is where you're going to look at the descriptors, the skills, the requirements in the CV and make sure that this particular version of your CV is reflective of that to give you that best opportunity to get shortlisted. You definitely at this point want to do some research on the company. And the reason why is recruiting right now is it's a candidate's market and it's super competitive, but companies need to be quick at hiring people. And so there have been cases where I'll receive a CV and literally I'm picking up the phone, 10 minutes later, wanting to do a quick phone screen to get you in front of a hiring manager as quickly as possible. Because if you're good and you've shown me that you're optimized for this role, if it's a sales role, there's going to be a ton of competition for you. And so I want to make sure I'm getting to you first. So doing some research on the company ahead of time as you're creating your CV will definitely allow you to put your best foot forward. If you do happen to get a call from that recruiter saying, hey, do you have 5 minutes to talk to me? And you're going like, who is this? I applied to 60 jobs. I'm not sure, who's calling me. That is never a good first impression. So definitely take notes on the companies that you've applied to. There's actually just a very basic spreadsheet tracker in Prepped. You can use this tool for networking as well, but to just really, keep track of who you spoke with, the role that you applied to, when you applied to that particular role. So when you do you get that, phone screen, you're still able to put your best foot forward. As we go to the next slide, this is going to give you some tips on how to tailor your resume for each application. So you can see there are sections of the CV that, the job description that have been highlighted. The research comes in handy, ensuring that you're including the same keywords, that if there are, certain programs need to be proficient with, that you're including those as well. And you also want to go back and look at aligning and tailoring your messaging to hopefully what you've learned so far from the research and the job description itself, and just making sure it's reflected in there. So Prepped, of course, I've mentioned it a couple times, but really does help you build your master resume and save time tailoring it because you can rescan as many times as you like. It helps you identify your skills and capabilities so you can ensure they're not only highlighted on your CV, but they're top of mind when you're practicing your interviewing as well. There's tons of different templates that you can use to help you create your master resume. If you've been told, okay, I need to use the certain template, then that's fine. But these can certainly help you get started, and they're all optimized for ATS. And of course, you can use our resume scanner to help improve your master resume and tailor it to a specific job. So hopefully you have these same takeaways from today's session. Definitely the effort that you put into your resume, especially in the beginning, is really going to pay off in the long run. You know, I can tell you once you've created a good CV, then it's just a matter of updating it and tailoring it to the specific job. But it's sometimes hard, like anything, to get the ball rolling and get that first one under your belt. Definitely recommend that you guys invest the time to do that because it will help you in the long run. Having a solid master version of your CV will save you time for sure, and tailoring it will definitely catch the eye of the recruiter and hiring manager. So yeah, that's it. I think one more pulse check is if you guys can put in the chat. So I know we didn't get a chance to actually practice tailoring our CV, but if you have improvement in terms of your confidence level, I'd be curious to see how much more confident you are feeling about building a more effective and tailored resume after today's presentation. So if you guys wouldn't mind taking the time to add that to the chat, and then I think, yeah, now we have a Q&A, if I'm not mistaken. 5. Oh my God, that's amazing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Erin. It was really informative. Thanks for sharing the best practices, you know, your knowledge and expertise. I learned a lot, so I took so many notes. I really feel now so confident about my resume. I'm sure that I'm going to get, you know, back to my resume to update it today. Lots of great, very, very informative. And I love the 5 tips that you summarized it in 5 tips. And for each part, you brought up like a examples to get a better understanding. For example, how you can use the active voice instead of just passive, right? Or how you can be, just not being repetitive, you know, and also about the, you know, how you can actually focus on result. I see sometimes, like most of the time that I receive resume, you know, for as a second idea to review, I see people just they list of the mandates and responsibilities. But as you said, instead of just listing the mandates, so just focus on the result and focus on the accomplishment, right? Like what make you unique? So how like you make you competitive compared to other people and the same job. So, and I love the examples, and I personally feel 5. Maybe, I don't know, maybe, yeah, so 5, I can tell. What about you, Ria? So I know you were at 3.
I definitely feel a 5 as well. I
Yeah.
feel much more confidence.
Mhm.
Thank you to Erin. You covered so many different things. Like, I've been at RBC for quite some time, so I selected 2 initially because my resume is dated to begin with. So I haven't been updating it at all. So, you know, definitely I feel like a 5 because I've gathered enough knowledge from you now to really update it. And the resources at Prepped is incredible. Like I've seen the templates that you have there, even the email and the message templates. I think those are incredible that people can use. So I highly, your number 4 takeaway was Prep can help. I see that.
No,
Very
thanks
interesting.
for having me. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Course. So yeah, very interesting about the prep that I didn't know. Thanks for touching on the you know the tools that you said that the prep can help that is to scan the resume, right? To just focus on the skills. That's really interesting. This is really amazing. I would love to try it actually. Amazing. Thank you so much, Erin. So yeah, so since she's here, just you know, take the advantage of Erin and ask your questions, please. I think you already answered the first question, right? It was about the cover letter that you already covered that. So that, as you said, is important, especially when you get to the you know interview stage. So it's really important to have like you know cover letter, especially if you know the name of the hiring manager or the interviewer. So you already covered that, and thank you so much for that. I actually received a question, a very great question. It's been sent, you know, privately to myself. So, what is the difference between objective and summary? Like, do we need to include the objective at the resume or not?
So in the templates that we have, it's not, I mean, that's really your impact statement, right? So I would say your objective, and I don't know if I would call it my objective. I mean, obviously my objective is to get a job if I'm applying, but it's you know, how do you feel you're going to have impact in this particular role? And this is where it's super important to pay attention to the information that's entered into the job description. A summary, you know, again, we want to try to get away from a paragraph. And you can definitely summarize your skills and abilities within the body using quantification in terms of the bullet points. So I don't know necessarily if that's super impactful. But certainly the objective would be your a bit of an elevator pitch, right? And this is what I'm going to be able to do for you. And that becomes really important when you're meeting with a hiring manager, because a recruiter is essentially going scan, scan, scan skills and abilities. Do you meet the minimum requirements for the job for a phone screen, right? But a hiring manager is looking at what the impact you'll have on the team and the results that potentially you could bring for them. Like they're looking at it from a standpoint of what's in it for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Great. So yeah, just ask any question from Erin. She's here. She's the expert. So we got a great comment. Thanks for sharing. Sharing is informative. I will go to prep to do more research for my resume writing. Awesome. This is really great. Thank you.
We have a question before the cover letter one. It was from the same person. I wonder which parts of the resume do employers in Canada are more concerned about? I know you covered the different components in the resume, but I guess they're asking if there are certain things. I would say you look at the whole thing, but if you can probably elaborate on that.
For sure. So when you're looking at a job description, it'll say, you know, sort of need to have and then nice to have. So I would go through those need to have and make sure that they're reflected in your CV. And that's going to be those areas are going to be the most important. So if the requirement is an education in a specific discipline, you want to make sure that's highlighted on your CV. If it's, certain programs that you would already need to be proficient with, that should be included. So, I think this is really universal, not just in Canada. It's just more so, you know, have you gone through and identified within the job description areas that the recruiter is looking for as must-haves and reflected that in your CV. So to your point, it is the whole thing, Ria, but it's really just, it's going to be different for each job depending on what the requirements for that job are, which is why it's so much more impactful if you are tailoring your CV to that particular job, if that makes sense. Should we include a professional picture in a resume? No, please don't.
No.
Yeah. So there are other implications of including a picture. You know, I know in some places in Europe, people still do it. If they want to, you know, once you've met with the hiring manager, once you've had an opportunity to interview, they know what you look like at this point. I think you really want to be evaluated based on your skills and abilities and not necessarily on your photo. That's just my professional opinion. I would just stick to skills and abilities at this point and how they relate to the job.
Awesome.
Erin, I have a question. It's more so for my own knowledge, and I was really, really intrigued with the AI interviewer. Could you share some more about that? Yeah.
So AI interviewer is basically just it's a formula that picks up on, you know, keywords, pacing, energy, facial expressions, and essentially ranks you amongst all of the other candidates that, you know, the system has in its database in terms of how people have performed in the past. So thousands and thousands and thousands of data points from all over the place that are essentially going to then provide you with feedback on what works and where you can improve. So we have that AI technology embedded in the resume manager, where it's going to look for keywords and bullets and quantification, and then a similar feature for interview manager that's going to pick up on things like facial expression, pacing, energy, repetitiveness, and so on.
That is amazing.
Mm-hmm. And it gives
I'm
you
really
immediate feedback as well. So,
Wow.
a lot of times if you're interviewing with a human, that person obviously will have their opinion and provide it. But you're not always going to have access to a human being to practice your interview skills at like midnight. I mean, this is 24/7. You can use it anytime you want, right? Which is super helpful if you like me and have anxiety and wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and feel the need to practice.
even getting the feedback like that, in this case, you're getting it immediately. You don't necessarily get it in a face-to-face. You don't get the feedback immediately, you know?
Mm-hmm. True. And a lot of students, especially with co-op, or, just even interviewing for the first couple times with an employer, they want that feedback. And so, afterwards, whether they get the job or not, they'll reach back out to the employer or the hiring manager and say, can you give me feedback on my interview? And a lot of times they don't hear back. More so in co-op because obviously there's that partnership and employers recognize that it is a process for the student and it's a learning experience. But students crave that. They want that because they want to know how they can improve. And so this is a way to be able to get that feedback.
It's almost like, yes, I want to do better. What did I do wrong? I need to learn. So it's that's knowledge that they want, right?
For sure. Yeah.
We
And
have
I
a great
see,
question. Oh, sorry. Go
oh, go
ahead.
ahead. No, I just see someone in the chat had asked a question, should resumes include a section for hobbies? Only if they're relevant to that particular job. So if you have a particular hobby that's relevant to the job, why not?
Okay.
Right. And Nora, thank you for your comments. So I said hi. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Nora, for joining us today. So is it possible to have a look at the last 10 slides? So I was trying to go back to the last 10 slides, but the good news is that today's webinars is recorded. So you're going to have access to the link, and it also will be available on the ACCESS website as well. So you can go back to to listen it again if you want. Awesome. Thank you, Ria, for sharing the link and the chat. Awesome. All right.